Mr. President, the more you look at the Green New Deal, the worse it looks. Last week, one think tank released a first estimate of what the Green New Deal would cost. And here's the answer. Between $51 trillion and $93 trillion over 10 years. Between $51 trillion and $93 trillion. That's an unfathomable amount of money. The 2017 gross domestic product for the entire world, for the whole planet, came to $80.7 trillion, more than $10 trillion less than what Democrats are proposing to spend on the Green New Deal. $93 trillion is more than the amount of money the United States government has spent in its entire history. Since 1789, when the Constitution went into effect, the federal government has spent a total of $83.2 trillion. That's right. It's taken us 230 years of American history to spend the amount of money that Democrats want to spend in 10 years. Or look at it this way. $93 trillion is enough money to buy more than 7,000 Ford-class aircraft carriers. 7,000. To put that in perspective, guess how many aircraft carriers the Navy currently has in its entire fleet? 11. Mr. President, it's like the Democrats are playing pretend. It's like they're on this road trip and they're trying to pass the time and say, what would you do if you won the lottery? Or what would you do if you had all the money in the world? It's a fun game to play for a few minutes, but it's not a game. The government doesn't have all the money in the world. That $93 trillion is going to have to come from somewhere. Now, Democrats like to suggest that we can pay for it and pay for just about anything simply by taxing the wealthy. But the truth of the matter is, taxing the wealthy or even the merely well-off isn't going to pay for this proposal. Taxing all the millionaires in the United States at a 100% tax rate for 10 years wouldn't add up anywhere close to $93 trillion. So taxing every household making more than $200,000 a year at a 100% tax rate for 10 years wouldn't get Democrats anywhere close to $93 trillion. So, let's take it a step farther. Taxing every family making more than $100,000 a year at a 100% tax rate for 10 years would still leave Democrats far short of $93 trillion. Mr. President, the Green New Deal is not a plan that can be paid for merely by taxing the rich. Actually implementing the Green New Deal would involve taking money, not just from the well-off, but from working families. And not a little bit of money either. $93 trillion breaks down to over $650,000 per household over 10 years. That's more than $65,000 per household per year. More than the median household income in the United States. In other words, the cost per household for just 1 year of the Green New Deal is more than the yearly income of 50% of American households. But let's leave aside the stratospheric cost for just a minute and talk about the other consequences of the Green New Deal. Democrats' Green New Deal would put the government in charge of a large portion of the economy and significantly shrink Americans' freedom. Under this bill, the government will impose new and stringent regulations on your appliances, your car, your house, and your place of business. It will limit your electricity options. It will put the government in charge of your health care. I know that's not really energy related, but the Green New Deal's authors went beyond energy to include a full socialist wish list. Your options for travel may be limited. A fact sheet released and later deleted, but one released by the authors of the Green New Deal called for a plan to, quote, build out high-speed rail at a scale where air travel stops becoming necessary, end quote. Well, that might work between D.C. and Boston, but let's say it's not going to work so well if you have family in Hawaii. I don't think the high-speed rail is going to reach that far. I would say that you could make the trip by passenger ship, but of course we don't know if ships, as we know them, would exist under the Green New Deal. After all, The plan's authors want to eliminate fossil fuels, which power ships as well as your car and your home. And incidentally, while we're on the subject, it's worth mentioning that the governor of California recently scaled back California's high-speed rail project. Why? Because it was costing too much money. Under the Green New Deal, if you like your car, you probably won't be able to keep it. If you like your health care, you probably won't be able to keep it. If you like your house, you may not be able to keep that either. That same fact sheet from one of the Green New Deal's authors says we need to, and I quote, upgrade or replace every building in the United States, end quote. Mr. President, there's no question that we need to protect our environment. There's no question that we should be developing clean energy sources and building on our existing clean energy technologies. And I would tell the chair, my home state of South Dakota is leading the way on this issue. In fact, my colleagues may be surprised to know that according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, South Dakota generates an average of 2/5 to half of its electricity from hydroelectric facilities along the Missouri River. Combined with our abundant wind generation, which provides roughly 30% of our electricity, South Dakota's net utility scale energy generation is over 75% renewables. I'm proud of South Dakota's renewable energy achievements. And I think we should be encouraging improved domestic energy production, increasing America's renewable energy supply, and reducing consumption through improved efficiencies. What we should not be doing is adopting a wildly irresponsible and completely unworkable and utterly unrealistic proposal that would drive taxes through the roof, reduce American standard of living, and permanently damage our economy. Mr. President, we're going to be voting on the Democrats' Green New Deal proposal in the coming weeks, and it'll be interesting to see where all of my colleagues stand on this socialist fantasy. You just heard the Democrat leader, senator from New York, saying that it's a gimmick, we shouldn't be voting on this. First time I think I've ever heard a leader of one of the parties here in the Senate come forward and say that we shouldn't vote on something that 11 of his Democrat colleagues have co-sponsored. He doesn't want to vote on a piece of legislation that's put forward by 11 Democrats here in the United States Senate. Well, I think it's important for the American people to know. I think it's important for members of the Senate to go on record on whether or not they think this is a good idea, or whether they think, like I think most Americans would believe, that this is a crazy idea that would wreck the economy, cost Americans jobs, and punish working families in this country with higher costs for literally everything that they face in their daily lives. Mr. President, for the sake of our economy and for working families, I hope when this vote comes that at least some Democrats will slow their party's headlong rush to become the Socialist Party and not what we've historically known as a Democrat Party in this country. Mr. President, I yield the floor.